See when I sit there, when you check I'm in the centre again. So I did ask somebody before. Is that all right? Good. Is it recording? Is it? Okay. Cool. I'm going to get started. You're all you're all extremely welcome. Thank you very much. I was just saying to Shauna, every time I have an artist talk, I think back to the very first artist talk I ever had in 2012 at the waterfront, and it was Shauna turned up and one other person, which is so this is kind of lovely. So, um, but these spaces for me, the artist talk spaces are very, for me personally, important, and I get to kind of like share really about the work and about kind of what it is. So openings are great, and they're always kind of full of energy and full of lots of apologies the next day of not getting to say hello properly to people. But the artist talk for me is really important. So thank you for showing up. It's amazing. So I'm going to talk you through kind of like basically what you're seeing in this show. There's quite a lot. It's 114 pieces of work up. There's actually more than 114. I didn't list the little black cutouts that are around the top of the wall, so there's probably about 120 pieces of work. But largest show that I have ever had the pleasure and opportunity to have. So I would like to say like a huge thank you to QSS, the Queen Street Studios, gallery, because getting to have an opportunity like this in Northern Ireland is sort of few and far between. And like the life of an artist is, trying to find the spaces to show and find the spaces to put yourself, present yourself, I suppose. So want to say a massive thank you to Kathy Scullion, who you'll all see kind of like hovering about. She has been such a great support to me in getting this exhibition ready, and also like right through the exhibition, and also to Carl Hagen and Mark McGreevy, who are both painters themselves, but they really helped me install the show. And there's absolutely no way that I would have been able to do this myself in the couple of days that I had to get it up. And it still took us 2 days to hang it, and then another bit of time to kind of like make sure everything was okay. So yes, a massive thanks to QSS in general. So I'm also going to just trust the mechanics are working of all of these things. So what have you come to today? In case I pose questions like that, they are my bullet points. But what have you come to today? So you have, I literally just said it to somebody as well. I feel like you are entering my mind a little by kind of walking into this room. I feel like you are seeing the world as I see it, maybe not literally, but certainly kind of by way of what the characters are, by what the kind of the topics that I explore in the work. I have felt from the beginning of putting this show up like that you're stepping almost into my viewpoint of the world and how I see. So getting to present it like this, to present so much like this, and actually there was a huge editing process. My studio was full of all of this other work, and it was just really lovely to be able to edit and to be able to select the work that I really wanted to put on display. So that leads me kind of to the work here. It ranges from 2018 to 2023. So there's some older paintings as you come in through the door. The larger pieces, especially, are from 2018, 2020. And I've never had the opportunity to show them. So it's like I get, that when you have space, you get the opportunity to kind of like show work that you never have before. They've sat in my studio since I've made the paintings. Like there's a painting by the door, I'll talk about it later, or just behind you there, called Slug Mattress. And I've loved it. I loved painting it. I loved making the artwork. I loved what it represents. But I've never had the opportunity for other people to kind of like see it and to get feedback about it or get a response to it, even if somebody doesn't like it. But it's really nice to kind of like to be able to have that space. And then also there's a lot of new work, so it's kind of all of the new work is really contained down the back of the room here. But you go sort of 2020 with this wall behind me, sort of COVID time. I was making all this stripped back in color, but then as you'll see, the work in the back wall last year and this year, I'm back into the vibrancy. So where am I? Yeah, so works on paper in here, paintings. I sort of began just to talk about it there. The space here has been very, very important because it has almost set a precedence for me as an artist. And it's never, you're never going to get opportunities like this all the time as you're kind of building your life as an artist. But like this has set a precedence for me. I feel comfortable in this space. I feel as though I could put on another exhibition in a short time in a space like this again. And it's the first time I've been really, really proud to have the exhibitions that I've had. But it's the first time in a while, maybe since the work in Kenya. But it's the first time I felt really proud of kind of like putting on a show like this and actually the ability of being able to kind of, fill it, and it feels kind of nice. So yes, I kind of have set a bar for myself. I don't know kind of what that means to be severely disappointed in the kind of coming years. But anyway, we'll work on that. So, but I also there's a lot of work in the show, and it's purposeful. It's intentional. When I first came in here, when I first got offered the space, I think I was like, oh, I walked in and I think every time I walked into this as a gallery, as a blank space, there was a slight wave of overwhelm, kind of like, what are you going to do? How are you going to present? But actually, that didn't stay too long. It literally washed over me, and then all of a sudden I was kind of like, right, this is what I started to very quickly piece together in my mind how I might like to see. I always envisaged having this wall as a wall of kind of like filled with these drawings. I kind of knew that was probably the first space that I knew what was going to be in the show, and then as I was hanging it, I let the kind of space talk to me as the artist and see what worked and what didn't. I have one kind of hanging piece at the back of this structure here, but I actually had others through the gallery, and I decided no, it was it's too much, with those in it. But it was interesting for me to be able to kind of like look at the space and see how to use it and see how to kind of pull a show like this together. I wanted it to kind of like have the impact when you walk around the corner, because I think a lot of people came into the show and thought, oh, there's the show in the front, a little bit as you walk through the door. There's a few paintings up, there's a wall of drawings, you see another wall. But a lot of people came around the corner, and even on the opening night, there's a woman, I keep hearing her voice in my mind. She just walked around, she's like, holy fuck. I was just like, but there's been quite a lot of responses like that, because you're kind of like, I think it's maybe unexpected, but I like that too, and I liked being able to kind of have that kind of impact. So kind of like I wanted to present, and I feel like it's the first time I'm presenting, even though I have lived back at home for 15 years as an artist. I've worked in out of Northern Ireland, but I feel like it's the first time that I'm kind of presenting myself even to Belfast, which is kind of odd considering I'm of Belfast and I've lived here for a long time, but that's how it feels. So it's nice. It's a nice feeling as well. Like I said already, this is a space that I feel very comfortable in, and I think as I go forward as an artist, it will inform how I go about approaching and how I go about in looking for other spaces that actually will allow me to contain work like this, even larger. I mean, I see myself kind of working larger again, larger paintings, larger spaces to fill. But anyway, that's a work in progress. So yeah, so you see kind of here then, I touched on there, you're really seeing almost like sections of work. It falls into distinct, apart from the paintings, it falls into distinct camps. So this is 2020, the wall, the neon stuff at the back is this year. Actually, that work was on display in June, which was lovely down at the Black Box. So it was nice to kind of put it as part of the wider kind of like the wider work. And then the wall at the very back, I made last year, all of the collage stuff. Collage is pretty recent in my practice ever since COVID. And now this is such a really fun, interesting, vibrant, energetic way to kind of create imagery and to create kind of like a body of work quickly. I like to work with speed, but I think part of my trying to figure out how to be an artist is like, how do you work with speed but with quality and with integrity behind the work. And I kind of feel like, especially with the neon stuff, like I made all of those in like 4 weeks at the back, and it was nice to be able to go in and really understand my decision making and my process making and how I now achieve the work, which feels good, and it feels like a powerful moment in stepping forward, because I kind of feel like there's so much that I want to make. There's so much work that I have inside me that isn't yet existing. So that's the beginning of it down there. All of what you see here is the beginning of kind of what I hope is about to come. So I'll talk through kind of the exhibition, and I'll start with the title. So the title of the exhibition is A Mental Illness on Canvas. And some of you will know the story behind the title, some may not. But the title derived from, basically, there was an article came out in May, the end of May, about my show in June in Belfast Live, on the online platform, news platform. And as soon as the article went live, somebody wrote a comment at the bottom of the article saying a mental illness on canvas. And I just thought it was like hysterically funny. Was up at the studio with Anne and Felicity, and like the two of us were just like cackling around the kitchen at the idea. But then it really, really sat with me. So I found it very funny. But also I found it very kind of like a little bit awkward, because you're like, okay, like somebody's taking a look at an image of me and an image of my work. And I'm like, and that's what they've come to very, very quickly. You know, they've come to this decision that I am somebody that's either mentally ill or a good representation of it. And maybe you can look at the work and think the same thing. But at the same time, it really fed into then what, like an overarching kind of feeling towards this exhibition. And I started looking at what this exhibition was. And I was like, what am I going to call this exhibition? I didn't have a title for it. And a lot of my work deals with human behavior and how we interact within society, and, you know, my viewpoint of that, but also equally kind of, you know, all of our viewpoints of it. So it kind of became something that idea that in the world you kind of reclaim text, or you reclaim words, and you present them back as something stronger or more powerful. So I kind of felt like I was taking something that somebody was using, designed with intent to either demean or hurt, or to cause problem by, or just a troll, to be, you know, funny or stupid or, you know, derogatory, whatever you kind of want to apply to it. But for me, it really felt like I was, you know, it felt significant enough, because like everything about what I talk about in the work, that it just became the title of the exhibition. Now, I did seek a lot of counsel around the title. I spoke with Kathy, I spoke with a lot of friends, because the one thing that I didn't want to do was demean anybody with mental illness. And it was very important for me not to come in and present a show and like almost like, you know, say, you know, that everything's mentally ill or, you know, whatever. But it certainly for me was, it was something that I couldn't stop thinking about. And normally whenever I can't stop thinking about it, it just has to be kind of, it has to be used in some way. So yeah, so I used it, and then everybody also was like saying to me that, you know, whenever you talk about it, whenever you explain it, that's why I'm starting with the explanation of the title, it gives a good entrance into what my work is all about. I said there that I deal with human behavior. A lot of my work over the years, I've learned, whilst there's an autobiographical kind of element to it, I'm much more interested now in sort of like universal traits that we all share, or the commonalities between, you know, societies or structures that kind of guide us, bind us, or manipulate us, or whatever. You know, those are the spaces that I'm interested in. So for me, the title almost became a reflection of possibly the world that we live in. Is the world human nature? Is, you know, the human condition, is it mentally ill? You know, is there something that kind of permeates, you know, our society that is mentally ill? Like, this is a lot of what I'm interested in, and what I seek to almost like take and like present back. And I'm like, so you'll see lots of characters in the work, and you'll see lots of little, you know, situations or odds, or even this portrait section on the wall over there. I see these characters as portraits of people that sort of exist. They're not real. They obviously are clearly not real, but, you know, it's like, could be real, or it could be something that exists somewhere. So yeah, so it was for me then, the title was just this very much like it was a way of bringing everything here together, and yeah, talk about kind of mental illness in an open way, or how people experience things. So yeah, so it was, it's been good. So I really thank that person. I think her name was Katie, that wrote that comment. She has helped. So I am going to read as well. For anybody that doesn't know, I've kind of published a few books over the last couple of years, of my work, drawings specifically. But for each book, I have sort of written text along with them at the beginning. So I'm going to read a couple of sections. I'm not going to kind of, I did this with the last exhibition as well, but there's something, as I was pulling together this talk, there was a real element of looking back at, kind of seeing a lot of my work together for the first time and in this way for the first time. So it's made me think back. And I went back and I reread essays. And interestingly, me as the artist is obviously in those essays. What you're seeing here is in those essays. So I'll read a couple of bits. So the first one is, first book from 2018 was called Worldview from a White Picket Fence. And all monochromatic drawings, black and white. The drawings that are in these books are digital drawings. I've been drawing every day now since the beginning of 2017. In this bit, there's like, it talks, in this book is like talks at the beginning, like I have 400 drawings. Now there's something like, 7,000, 8,000 drawings. And it's like, you have all of this work that you make that you kind of forget about as well. So a way for me to actually hold some of that work in a tangible space is to make these books. So yeah, but it's also it's been a lovely way for me to document aspects of my practice and my timeline as the artist. So I'm just going to read 2 short paragraphs from this. So my influences are sourced and generated from many different places. I am enthused or appalled by our surrounding world. I read or listen to other stories. I use pieces of my own conversation or from others and let that influence my work. I randomly place ideas together to see what might happen. That's a good example of that there. I can create portraits or landscapes, and they often relate to something that I know or something that is experienced. I feel there is an absurdity to the world we live in. I am interested in narrative, storytelling, a system, hierarchy, or a crossover between fact and fiction. I think that as humans, we have a continuous duty to convey a sense of the world inhabited and of the expected or unexpected. I often create characters that are a direct response to these collected narratives, and these characters play out various roles or situations in the work. Images may appear as a standalone work, although I believe they all feed into a bigger or wider picture. So I wrote that essay in, I think, around 2018. And when I reread it, I was like, that last sentence, I believe that they all feed into a bigger or wider picture. I believe that that's what you're seeing right now. Kind of makes me feel a little bit overwhelmed, but it's kind of like, it's like you make the work as the artist, you're kind of creating and, and you're thinking, and then like years later, like that was 2018, so we're kind of 7 years later, that you get like an opportunity to see it all together, and actually how you were thinking back then is still how you're thinking now. So it felt kind of nice revisiting that. It surprised me a little. And then it made me reread this one, which then surprised me further, which kind of I'll talk about in a wee bit. So I wanted to pick out that as well because of the idea of absurdity. And you look at my work, a lot of people look at my work and they think absurd, or it's ridiculous, or why would you paint something like that, or I wouldn't have that hanging on my wall. All of this, I get that, I get it. There are many, many different artists in the world, and we all see the world differently, and we all create. But it has been fundamentally important to me to maintain the integrity of myself as the artist, as I have grown as an artist. And I have tried making other ways of working, and I have tried doing it to get income or whatever, but I just couldn't do it, And for me, a way of sustaining myself as an artist, I've been self-employed now since 2011. a way of me sustaining myself is through community arts and the community work that I do, which is really kind of like held the ability to be able to kind of make and actually be an artist as well. So it's a difficult world, but yeah, but there's lots of absurd in my work, and I get that. But also that is the work. I'm interested in the absurd. I'm interested in all of the things that kind of are slightly jarring or odd or whatever. So I'll talk about so the opportunity to show work. I said there earlier. I'm going to talk about a couple of paintings. So the first one is at the back as you sort of come through the door there, Slug Mattress. I've not had the opportunity to show. There's paintings in here from 2018, 2020 that I made and have just sat in my studio. They haven't gone anywhere. I do have a body of work in Spain at the minute that I'm having difficulty getting back, and I wanted some of that for the show. So there's actually a huge chunk of work that I probably would have had in the show that isn't here. But anyway, there's a lot of other work. So Slug Mattress, for example, going through the work in the studio was really, really nice. I was pulling all of this work out, getting to look at what I had. You forget. I actually forgot most of what is here. Forgot I even made it. It's in a drawer. So getting to look at the work and getting to think about what might work in this space was kind of really nice. And being able to select and curate my own exhibition like that was good. So Slug Mattress kind of, the idea derived from conversations around animals, conversations around kind of like usage of animals in other ways, apart from an animal just being an animal. But they became conversations that I was having at the time, like just became just more absurd and stupid, and it's a silly conversation. But I was sort of like, well, what if you took a bunch of slugs that you find in the desert or whatever, and you make a bed out of them? And would that be comfortable or in somewhere that's really dry and rocky, or would it just be a big mess? Obviously, it'd probably be a big mess. But then you've got these kind of like two giant feet behind it, almost like standing, waiting to use it, or like it can be functional in some way, or something like that. So there is usually within the work, there's a lot of meaning behind it that I put into it, but also what I hope my work does is it allows you to put your own meaning into it and you explore the work how you need to as well. Somebody pointed out to me recently that there's the slug and the elephant repeat in my work quite a lot. And then now, somebody pointed out recently to me that for years that they've done that, you'll sort of see it through. But that almost the elephant, could be possibly the patriarchal kind of like subject, and the slug could be, maternal or something like that. It's interesting now as I start to look maybe at the psychology of me and the work in a slightly deeper way again, and you could go far with it, but yeah, but even I'm starting to look at my work differently, and being able to see it like this allows me to see it differently even again. It allows me to kind of like just understand it that little bit better. Another one of the one I use for the advertisement, Saturate with Poison, literally depicts somebody pouring something. It's almost like an act of pouring, or that there's something happening to this character. Either they're being killed, or they're being fed, or they're being whatever it is. But it's there's there's a kind of darker undertones to the painting. It's painted in quite a playful way. But for me, it's also a lovely painting as by way of like how it's painted and how I've kind of created the structure of the painting, and I really enjoy that painting. I enjoy all of these paintings. Same with like the state we're in. I almost the one just here, like these melted characters, and for me, I'm like, are they in the process of melting, or have they melted already, and we kind of like just exist like that? There's eyes in the work indicating maybe something that is human or lifelike, or something relatable, but also equally totally unrelatable, not of this world, impossible. But the title, even to me, The State We're In, I made that painting I think around 2000, I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2020, but I was looking at the world back then and thinking to myself, that it's crumbling, it's melting. There's something going through society that's like really not nice and acidic in some way. And that painting was kind of a reflection of that. So the work still feels relevant, and it still feels as though it is important in today's climate. So, and then the last one I'll talk about specifically is the pause for a second. So it's just behind there on that wall, and it's sort of like the title depicts what is happening. So it says pause for a second, but I wonder, does this character think, are they, have they just realized that they're slightly disappearing, or is this just how he goes about, where he's kind of half seen, half invisible? They're fictional situations, and but they link in maybe sort of like slightly deeper to the human condition, I think. So the walls of work that are on display, like I said, this wall here, specifically, I always knew that I wanted to have that coming in, but it did inform the way the other work is hung. So you've got another kind of like cyanotype drawing wall there, and then most recent drawings are at the door. You kind of walk in, but it was nice to see this like this because it allowed me to understand that actually I love using space like that. I love filling it. I love like it being that bombardment. It's like I look at this and I'm like, this is the same world. It's the same space that everybody's just busy in, getting on with the day, but there's so much around. There's so much happening. It's kind of how I see the whole exhibition, but the same with the work, the two lines of work that are at the back. The collage work again. It was kind of nice hanging that. It reminded me of a show I had in Kenya a few years ago where I made 88 pieces of work and I hung the work just like that. It was 44 top row and right round the gallery, and it was a really lovely exhibition. So it's nice to kind of for me to see that mirroring of how I present work is also kind of happening again. So for me, that speaks to me as the artist as well. And then most recently, the wall at the back, the neon stuff, I had that show in Observing, Digesting, Spitting in the Black Box in June. And I kept saying to everybody, I just wish I had another 10 paintings because I would have loved to have filled that entire wall in there. I hung them in 2 rows, but I would have loved to have had another 10 paintings to fill another row. So I kind of chose then to put the paintings in this back corner as sort of 4 rows of 4, which I think really works. And again, I kind of like, give me a gallery to put, 200 paintings in, so I'll take it. But this work was really, like I said before, was really lovely. Getting to reconnect with it. I've never had the opportunity to show this work. The work has sat in drawers for a long time, and this work specifically, like I said, I made through COVID, and the work now looking back really took on this very stripped back. There was very little color. There was some color. There's a couple of paintings I made at the time, but the majority was like this. But seeing it all up here now, like I actually, there's so much more of it, and I was able to go through all of this work and actually sort of pull out the things that I find really interesting, like things like the bird cage up here, or this kind of character with the sting at the bottom, and the pyramid again. I mean, there's things that I kind of was finding really interesting in the work as I was looking at it. That might, play out in conversations. Because what I'm now starting to understand as the artist, like work, there's characters that exist, there's situations happening that actually appeared a decade ago, longer, and they kind of come back, and they are now starting to have a conversation over a long time. So that discovery and rediscovery and new conversations now that are existing within me is really, really good. So I just talked about the neon stuff. That neon work really links into a lot of my drawing practice now. A lot of the paintings are lifted very directly from the drawing practice that I have. Yeah, it's all documented kind of like on social platforms. But I sort of was able to kind of take a lot of the drawings that I liked and quickly make paintings. Also introducing the neon, which kind of came from some of the back work there in the collage. I just was like, how can I get more color into the work? And then the neon is just another way to kind of like catch attention to grab you in, and I really like it. So it's a nice way to kind of to go. So I'm just gonna read another. Excuse me, my throat is dry. Gonna read another section from my second book. Yep. Mm-hmm. No, you're okay. Okay.
Your space ones
Mm-hmm.
that you have, and
Mm. Yeah, you get. Do you mean by the pyramid kind of stuff? And yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of symbology that kind of like permeates the work, and like so. For example, I really adore the Egyptian kind of period, and it's like for me, looking at the shapes, the symbols, all of that stuff, I kind of pick and choose a lot of what you see. And I'm happy to do that. It's like a lot of people are precious about in the world, like culturally, it has to be our culture, it has to be this, has to be that. I don't know, possibly being an artist allows me to dissect that a little and change that. A lot of the collage pieces down there actually hold artifacts from all cultures and all civilizations. Because my viewpoint of the world that we're in is that we're all of one and we're all of the same. And yes, generationally, years go by, if things change, cycles change, whatever. But I don't know whether we have to maybe at some point get to a shared space collectively within the world, whether we do or don't. Probably not. But I feel like it's important for me to lift things that are strong as representations of lots of other things, and I put that into the work. And I think I learned that through the likes of going to Kenya and spending 9 years working in and out of there as a white man in a black society. And what can you do? What can you not do? How do you have a conversation? How do you present yourself, live as an artist? But I'm so grateful for that period of time because it has taught me how to be an artist and how to hopefully use things in a safe or a strong way that isn't offending of anybody. But yeah, and the life and space stuff is there's only 6 of them that exist at the minute. And the life on Earth, there's 20 on the wall there. But that is, it's a subconscious kind of exploration of chaos versus calm. So the life and space stuff is playful and calm. May not look that calm, but it's calm. So I'm going to read a short couple of paragraphs from this, just to sort of talk about how it links in now again to now. There's a quote that is attributed to Leonardo da Vinci. The artist sees what others only catch a glimpse of. I often feel that this is true for me. My sense of self and how I function with spaces has always had a greater awareness attached to it. Initially, I was exploring what it meant to create art from my own outward-looking perspective, but now I'm interested in all the various spaces that we all cohabit as humans, which links in, Bruna, to what I was saying. These can be social, political, or metaphysical spaces. I'm a perceptive person, and I have a rational, logical, and open viewpoint, I think, that allows me to hold and investigate other opinions and ideologies rather than just pushing my own agenda. I look at and examine how individuals treat other people. I look at behaviors and how these impact on others. I look at historical timelines in order to get a better understanding. In order to better understand my own personal position in a contemporary climate and to better understand racial divisions and tensions, how white supremacy operates, or how hatred against the other manifests itself within our societies today. As I have grown as an artist and through my investigations, it seems to me that typically the human is a naive creature. I refer to how people very easily attribute meaning or cause to their lives without often considering a world outside or a space away from their own doorstep. There is perhaps a bliss in not knowing or having to consider the difference around us. However, therein lies our collective problem. As a collective race, many of us have become more united through technologies and some ideologies, although now we also see greater divisions and fractures emerging that will perhaps ultimately grow. In my work, I examine how I operate within my surrounding space, and I also look at how other people operate within theirs. My work can be a reflection of emotions or scenarios, and even though there is sometimes a nod to the personal, I believe that I deal with universal human traits. Often I act as a sponge, soaking everything in. Sometimes perhaps the sponge becomes so saturated that in turn other tensions arise. Sometimes I have no option but to let it soak in, to soak it in, to let it become saturated, and then to squeeze it back out. At those moments, what I seek to do is find a way to pour it back into my work. It is a way for me to process or understand thoughts and feelings. So I think that kind of maybe even links in to what, I was just saying there. I see my work as, it's all of me, but it's also of a wider world. And I do feel as though I'm dealing a lot with universal, those universal traits that kind of bind us all together, that kind of where the common ground is for all of us to walk on. So yeah. So I shall promise not to keep you too much longer. The title of this section was What Has the Exhibition Made Me Think About? So I thought I would offer that out. One is that I am comfortable in a space like this. If there's one thing that this show has done for me, it has informed how I want to show in the future. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to show like this in the future, but I will. And I'm already looking forward to that again. So, first time I've been able to properly present myself to Belfast. We live in a space in the world really that is small and very insular. There are not a lot of opportunities here by the way of galleries and spaces to show conversations as an artist to have, which I think in turn makes it more difficult to be an artist because you're looking then to sort of like those spaces elsewhere. It's a whole other type of work, and yeah. Anyway, we all do what we do as the artists in Northern Ireland, and I've also been really grateful to have a lot of opportunities elsewhere. So characters. I knew that whenever I was putting on the show that I wanted to really kind of like see what spoke to me in the show whenever I had it. I knew there was going to be work on display that would potentially inform my thinking, or the work would inform the other work in the room, and it did. There are two characters that have become really, really present in my mind, and the first is the portal character, the green character that's over there. He's there, and he's also on another painting just around the corner, and there's some other portal kind of bits, but I almost sort of feel like this entrance in and out of spaces, even though I feel like this is like the one world within the work, they're also of distinct spaces. So I almost like see that portal character taking me out, taking me in, taking me out, taking me into another space. So that has been important. And the second character that has really become present in my mind is the sun character. There's a character, you come in the door, and the four paintings that are on the door with the title. They look slightly different. They're really recent paintings. They look slightly different to other paintings that are on display. There's a black structure that holds them together. I've stripped back paint for the first time, kind of like really thinking about thin layers as opposed to building layer after layer after layer. But there's something about that character that holds Sun inside him as he walks around and starts to have an investigation around him. So that's kind of, there's a portrait piece of that character, but there's also three other pieces. And that's him kind of like almost just exploring different circumstances. They aren't all anything specific, I don't believe. They kind of are just drawings that I made, and I made the drawings, when I made them. They started as digital drawings, and I kind of copied them pretty much from the drawing. And if I make another book, those drawings will go into the new book, because they also form part of a new way of thinking in my work. From the beginning of 2022, I've been drawing every day since the 1st of January. The drawings have followed the day before. So I made a drawing on the 1st of January, and the drawing that I did on the 2nd followed the 1st. The drawing that I did on the 3rd followed the 2nd. And we're now in August, and that work links, the drawing that I made last night links in some way directly back to that first day of January 2022. I'm really thinking about narrative in the work now. I'm thinking about what narrative means. I'm thinking about the idea of storytelling, the idea of something progressing. And even though you look at the drawing that I made last night, I think it was called Bomb Face, of this character made up of pipe bombs. Even though it doesn't directly link to the first person, but it's kind of, it is all the same thing, I think. I'm at the beginning of trying to figure that out, so get back to you in the next talk about that. But those two characters to me have been very, very important. I think I'll carry something of that through. Another thing that's been important for me is the presentation of these walls of work. The walls of work for me, I see that as quite important. There's something about the impact that those walls can have. But like, imagine a bigger wall with bigger drawings, or a room filled with those hanging paintings, of the hanging painting that's around the corner there. I don't know, there's something about being able to have the ability to fill a wall like this, but create the world that almost exists within all of the work. Feels important. So something else that I've been thinking about a lot is what it's like to be an artist. And I wrote down here, like, why or what is the point of all of this? What happens if you don't sell work? Or what happens when it appears to you that potentially the governors of the arts, let's say in Northern Ireland, don't show up or don't kind of, be present? All of these questions go through your mind whenever you're putting on a show like this. And it did for me. And it's like, why am I still an artist all of these years later? I graduated in 2008. I did a painting degree, but I was an artist before that. I wrote at 10 years old that I wanted to be an artist, and who knows what 10-year-old wants, who knows what they want to do really at that age. But I wrote it. It's written documentation in an English jotter somewhere, and almost like that it was kind of like written somewhere for me. I still feel like what you're seeing today is you are seeing my life. You're seeing me as the artist. You're seeing me today as I will be in 15 years' time, 20 years' time, 30 years' time. Hopefully it'll be in a bigger space than this. But I think part of my conversation is, it is a way of me processing the world. It's a way of me seeing. It's a way of me presenting back in all of its absurdity and in all of its color and all of its, ridiculousness. I feel like that's me as the artist. I am going to read, which might touch on that. I'm going to read the final section from my recent book, which was published. I published this one this year. But I'm going to, somebody recently asked me as well. It's my next point, but it kind of feeds in. They asked me just the other day, is it a burden being an artist? And it's such an interesting question. You're like, is it a burden? Is being an artist a burden? It's like, why are you doing this? What's it about? Why are you trying to have a conversation with the world? But like for me, it's like, the fact that you're all sitting here today is, that, it's, really thank you for coming. Anyway, I'm also a bit emotional, so as you can tell. So. Right, let me find, I was going to read. Is it a burden? I know for me that it is not a burden. It's one that I need to think about a little bit more. There are things that are like a burden, but equally, it's for me, no, it's a life for me, and it's a life lived, and that's kind of what I think. So, so I have a couple paragraphs, and then I promise to let you go. So, to be able to grow artistically, and this sort of feeds into my thinking about what it means to be an artist, which is why I'm choosing to kind of read this. So, to be able to grow artistically means that we must learn many different abilities, and we must essentially develop a thick skin. We must develop technical skills and capabilities across multiple artistic processes, learn how to research, how to become an administrator and a publicist, interpersonal skills, to name a few. of the many attributes an artist must have in the world. We must also strive towards remaining patient, cultivating personal resilience while we figure out how to wear so many hats in order to allow our practice to move forward. Excuse me. We often try to wear these hats all at the same time in order to be able to function, progress, learn, become financially stable, remain financially unstable, and to develop projects and create artistic connections that will propel us towards a further destination. What has become acutely apparent to me since I became a full-time self-employed artist is that so many other artists find it extremely difficult to sustain a practice because of odds that always seem to be stacked against them. Many artists stop working, or they aren't able to work to full capacity because it is notoriously difficult to get that foot up towards visibility. The visibility that's needed in order to earn an income that can be reinvested in materials, projects, and pursuits, or to effectively learn essential skills such as business management. Even now as I write, I wrote this year, even now as I write, it is difficult for many to deal with the current extortionate cost of living. So how, as artists, do we acquire the necessary resources to work? Unless you're fortunate enough to have abundant time and wealth, there is no easy answer. And of course, often as much we need to sustain our lives as artists is time and money. So far, I have sustained my full-time artistic life by working in various arts roles within the community sector, while at the same time maintaining my studio practice. To date, these areas of my life have worked in tandem. Being self-employed has allowed me to manage my own time around my work schedule and the freedom to pursue projects or exhibitions locally, nationally, and internationally. Being self-employed has allowed me access to my artistic practice, but increasingly I find I'm not getting the dedicated time that I need for painting in order to properly progress my work. However, I'm seeking to change that state of affairs now. Choosing to be an artist, I've learned how to be able to fight, fight for what I need, so that I can continuously evolve. Perhaps a part of being a functioning artist, perhaps a part of what being a functioning artist means is about having to learn how to fight, evolve, and to develop resilience where we can. We fight to understand the world. We fight to learn our skills and techniques. We fight to acquire monetary support that enables our work. We fight and wrestle with work to get it completed to a high standard. We fight for rights. We fight to stay alive. Sometimes I wish that it wasn't as much of a fight for survival, although perhaps engaging in the fight may distinguish between sincerity and insincerity. I guess a fight makes you feel as though you're battling for something, although we are only human at the end of the day, and every battle has its toll. Artistic life can be exhausting. Having said that, all artists' lives and trajectories are different. It is not for us to question why someone stops working. I would just prefer a world where artists who are so essential to everyone's lives weren't forced to choose between the ability to make art and make a living. Why are artists treated so badly? I do feel passionate about it, and it's like something that is, it is difficult. It's really, really difficult. Why are artists treated so badly in our societies? Visual art, music, theatre, writing, and dance are generally undervalued and underfunded, yet they single-handedly provide the world with entertainment, vibrancy, colour, intrigue. So why not create a space in society where all people are valued and properly supported? Often in our educational system, there is an idea that the arts are not as important as other subjects or professions, or that they will not lead towards a lucrative career in this capitalist world. Perhaps in this system, free thinkers and questioners are singled out to be discouraged and put at a disadvantage. Imagine a world where everyone was encouraged to question their existence and to what is going on around them. Perhaps such a world could not be easily controlled, but equally perhaps it could be a really fantastic place. So what's next? And I'm nearly done. So for me to listen to what I was responding to in this exhibition, and there are characters that I responded to that I know I will take forward now within the work. That feels important. I'm also writing a book. Who knew that I was would write an actual book in my life? But I am a foster parent, and I've been fostering for about 2.5 years, and I've actually been writing a book about the first year of that experience. So for me is to finish that. After I take the showdown, I will be finishing that book. I've got it pretty much it's written. I'm kind of just editing and finishing. I also want to turn it into an art book. So my intention is to place a drawing at the beginning of every chapter. And that way it kind of ties it into my work, ties it into my practice as well. So I'm saying that out loud to a room full of people because I am going to finish it. So, and then also kind of like seeking new opportunities. As the artist, you're writing, to people all the time, and you're trying your best to kind of like get the work shown. So thank you again to QSS Gallery. Having the opportunity to show like this has been so vitally important for me, and it feels like it's a strong moment for me as an artist, being able to just show you kind of what I do, and for that I will be eternally grateful. Thank you all for coming today. I am so happy that you're all here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm not apologize for getting emotional, but not holding it together through the talk. But I didn't burst into tears. So all right. Has anybody before we wrap up, any questions? Happy to answer any questions if you have. I think there's a mixture of subconscious and deliberate. It was at a time where I had just started using Cyanotype as it's a print process, but I started using that quite painterly in the work, and I was painting with it and drawing with it. So what you're seeing here is a lot of drawings that I was making with the Cyanotype solution that I would then develop in Sun. But equally then we entered COVID, and I'm very grateful that I had my studio during COVID. I was able to go and work, and my studio was just full of those drawings. Like I had them all over the floor. I was building them essentially, and they very naturally just carried through like that. And there's quite a lot. Like this was the first stuff, and then the other wall that's up there is sort of like later on. So I continued working in that way because there's something really strong about it. I don't know. Is it a subconscious thing of, how COVID was at the time where you had to really just take a step back and strip everything back? These feel like, they almost feel like skeletal in some way, or I don't know. I think even by having this show, it's like helping me think about it because they've been in a drawer since I made them, So pulling them out, I actually had forgot that they existed. So I'd say it's probably a bit subconscious, but also equally it was feeding into Cyanotype. The way of making with Cyanotype was feeding into the idea of drawing. And then I see these as drawing with ink and Cyanotype. So, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah. Am I in it? No, but that pyramid kind of like, eyes permeate kind of the work anyway. But the pyramid kind of I was looking at Egyptian kind of stories, and I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and I was going through this entire audiobook during COVID about Egyptian history and all the different eras and stuff. So yeah, so that's where those come from. But then eyes, the eyes kind of are just ever present, populating everything. So. Yeah, there's it's really lovely way to make work. And you are did you teach me Cyanotype? I think maybe you did. So there is something about the process that is really lovely. And it's like, because you work with this green solution, You mix two chemicals together, and then it's like a green solution. You have to be in the dark to use it. And then if you've all heard blueprints, it's how blueprints used to be used. The literal blue color comes from the cyanotype. But there's something really nice about the process of it, because I'm drawing with it, painting with it. Then you have to take it to a space that is developed by light, either the sun or UV kind of tubes. So there's something nice about it, you know. And I also kind of like still think I'm at the beginning of exploring it as a painterly technique as well. And, you know, what would happen if I expose it in the sun for, you know, 2 minutes versus 20 or whatever, and start to build different kind of tones and shapes through as well. So it's something I think I will explore. But the sun, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, the sun kind of is a motif in the work that you know that comes through over and over, and you'll see it in slightly different shapes at times, like it's almost like a C shape up here, or this bird. Like there's a lot recently where these characters are very close to the sun, and you wonder, are they close because they're deciding to be there, or are they happy, or are they sad? I don't know. It's just maybe the first time there's like usually quite joyful. There's something about proximity at the minute that I'm not. That's I've noticed a couple of times in the work. So yeah. Any other questions? Can we wrap it up? Thank you very much. Thank you. Really appreciate you all coming. Okay. This is all still working. Still on. So.